Hi. In this series of sessions, we're going to learn DataSphere functionality and concepts in detail. This is a learning series that covers the data warehousing concepts and also the modeling concepts like creating analytical views and do the data transformations as part of data warehousing, and finally consuming these models in analytical reporting applications like SAC. In order to go through all these sessions, I'm going to use my free trial of DataSphere. You can get a free trial account. This is the link. You can go to the products and then start your free trial from this URL. I can add this link to the session so you can start using um, your free trial. It doesn't have to be your company account. You can use your personal um, community user account to get the free trial. So you get the subscription of free trial. You'll receive an email which is going to be something like this with your credentials. You got an user ID, starts with ZE, and then you get a password generated by SAP trial account. So I'm going to use these user credentials and navigate to the free trial account of DataSphere. I already did that. This is my guided experience DataSphere tenant. I got access to the apps. You can see them all here. We're going to go through these different apps and functionalities in detail. I just wanted to talk a little bit of DataSphere. This is a cloud service provided on BTP as a software as a service, formerly known as Data Warehouse Cloud. The service has been introduced to provide data warehousing capabilities on cloud. It's a public cloud or software as a service application where you can use this to get or extract the data from multiple sources on-premise, um, non-SAP or other cloud data sources. And also you can leverage BW um, investment by using BW Bridge to get the data from ECC or S4, and then have your data store objects and every other data governing objects created in BW Bridge, and then those models can be replicated or use them as views to build your own model in DataSphere. So there are multiple use cases of data warehousing that is possible in DataSphere, and we're going to go through some of them or most of them. Since it is a trial version, I may not be able to show some of the connections. For example, if I wanted to connect to HANA on-premise, which is not technically possible, I need to have a HANA on-premise installation, and then that needs to be connected using Cloud Connector, which is in the network of the HANA on-premise system. And that's when a firewall rules are to be updated to allow this connection to be able to access DataSphere. Which is on public cloud. It could be AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform, GCP. So this is an example of some of the limitations that I may have in showing the connections to some sources. Uh, but most of the time, we don't worry or we don't get into the different source connections in these sessions. Instead, we recreate or we create local tables in DataSphere and start using them to create our models, fact, dimension, and analytical models, and then consume them in SAC. It's going to be the most relevant practical scenario for these sessions. Okay, coming to the topic of the discussion, introduction. This is a very first session in this series. And then the topic for today is going to go through all the functionalities or concepts in a very high level. And then we'll try to get the data from uh, flat files into my DataSphere, and then from next session onwards, I'm going to use those tables to create data flows or do some transformations to create a data warehouse, or I can even directly create models on top of those tables and consume them in SAC. So we're going to look at some of those scenarios in the next sessions. For today's session, the topic of the interest of the focus will be going through all the concepts at a very high level in DataSphere. So I'm going to navigate to the DataSphere tenant. I at the home page. Um, the first thing um, we have to, or we start with, is spaces. So you can see I have a space created in this trial account. I was equipped, or I was provided with one default space, and that's when I can see the space name starts with my, or has my user ID. But in production, you may have, production instance of DataSphere, you may have different spaces created. Spaces are your workspace where the resources are allocated at the space level, and the separation, the clear separation happens at the space level. For example, in an organization, you wanted to keep entire IT COE work in one space, or area, and you can have other functional or other business areas of work created or developed in another space. Could it be HR or spend, finance, and etc. The spaces are clear isolation of your work from one business area or one business module to another one. The classification can be different, and it is done based on the company or the customer requirement. So not going to really go into the details of how the classification can be done in DataSphere while creating the spaces. Instead, I'm going to say while creating the space, you allocate the memory and storage parameters to it. So you choose how much space that you wanted to allocate to that particular source, and then it also shows this particular space. When you go into the space management, it shows the details of the space, where the workload management, users in that space, and also the connections, and also time data. So you can create. This is very similar to generating time data in SAP HANA the world. So similar to that, you can generate time data. By default, there is a set of time data generated for me in this instance, but in production instance, you can generate time data for your space, and you can keep adding users. So we talk about the security in a very detailed session, because the security is slightly comes up with another concept called scope roles. There are roles, and then there are scope roles. So based on the custom requirements, you inherit some of the functionalities from the scope roles, and then those scope roles will be assigned if you wanted to have specific authorizations on space. So we'll go through the user security later, and then that is the first starting point. Space management is the starting point where you allocate the memory and storage to to the the space when it is getting created. Once you have the space configured and ready to use, the next thing is to have the connections created for your sources. You can have connections to SAP sources like SAP HANA, uh, non-SAP connections, or to the BW system, or it could be any. So there are multiple options for you to choose, for you to configure a connection. So you can see there are some local connections already created. These were created by other users as part of the free trial. And so this is not a dedicated instance to me, and there are multiple other users also working on in this instance, and then those are the connections created by them. So I'm not going to use any of those existing connections. Instead, I'm going to create a new connection. I'm not just getting into the details of creating a connection. I am just showing how to create a connection. So you can see several connection types here, right from SAP ABAP, Azure and AWS and Google Cloud, and also on-premise applications like SAP HANA. And like if you choose on-premise, you can see Oracle, SAP BW, and all these. And when you choose something, then it's going to give you the parameter screen where you input all the host port and all the different credentials that are required. So if it is sitting on the on-premise system, you may have to use the cloud connector to get um, get the connectivity established. For example, if I'm going to create a connection to SAP HANA, let's take a look at the options that I have here. This is my SAP HANA, and you can see there is a host port that you provide right on premise, and then you go, and then here you have the option data provisioning option using cloud connector or data provisioning. This option is exclusively provided for SAP HANA as the source, so you can choose cloud connector for remote access, like a SDA. You can virtually access calculation views from SAP HANA and use them in DataSphere for further modeling or doing another analytical model creation, and then give that for SAC reporting. So this is one of the examples that I wanted to show you to create the configuration. So I don't have any on-premise system. It is sitting on my customer net. This is a totally a trial system, so I'm really not configuring anything. I'm just canceling it. So I wanted to show you how do you create connections to sources here. And then once you have the connections ready, then you get into the data builder application. Data builder application is the IT owned or IT centric application where you configure or you create the local tables, you create the transformations, and also have the data warehousing done by doing the star schema or another type of model. Store the data in another target table. Then on top of those target tables, you can create some graphical views and analytical models. Those analytical models can be consumed by Analytics Cloud SAC. So it's very important to understand the concepts of data builder, right from replication to the transformations and also creating the models. So all ETL plus modeling analytics uh, are um, done in data builder app. It's an IT centric, which is a COE centric. We can also say it's the DataSphere developers will do most of the work here. In our sessions, we're going to do all these objects development, and then we'll understand detail. We'll come back to the some of the objects little later in this topic. We're not going to go into the details of these topics today, but I will cover at least a few topics after I load the data into the remote tables here. Then the next application that I wanted to talk about is Business Builder. This is right on Data Builder application. So Business Builder is another layer where business have the where business has got the opportunity to create or develop some models um, for their custom requirements. So in the past, any data warehousing system like BW or SAP HANA, it was not so easy for the business users to come and work in one of these IDEs. It was not very common practice, or it's not an easy task for the business to come in work in IDEs. So this has been a challenge for many years. And with the DWC or Data Sphere Business Builder interface is going to um, allow or help the business to create the entities on the tables or all or the views that were already created by IT team in the data builder. So it's an extension to your models in a business layer. Business can create a new dimension, new fact, or the consumption model and then give it to the SAC reporting tool. They, I mean, they can go and consume these models in SAC directly. So there's a little scope for the business users to play around and do some changes to the models. So here they don't have access to make any changes to the objects that are created in data builder. So they are secured uh, uh, for they're secured with the modifications. And the another application that I wanted to talk about is catalog. Catalog is something is more data intelligence concept of metadata read and do the data cataloging, um, and then able to provide the data lineage or have some business real meaning to those objects. So this is something more from data intelligence cloud concept, as data intelligence also being transition or being routed to the data sphere. So we get to see these functionalities in data sphere. So eventually intelligence cloud will be going away when all the functionalities of intelligence cloud available in DataSphere. But at this time, it is not the case. Still, Data Intelligence Cloud has got several ETL capabilities with pipeline and data governance activities and etc. So this is not at this time. And then you can see the data integration monitor. There is a data integration monitor you can see for the replications and the transformation jobs. You can monitor all the jobs that you created by accessing this application. But really, currently, I don't go into the details of it, as we have some integrations created, and then we can come back and see the job status, whether the job run was successful or failed, or when it was last updated, and the next run for the deltas. So that's more from the modeling perspective. You also have transport. Really, this time we don't really have to talk about transportation, and then we will come back to this a little later in the sessions when we go into the sessions. There's more. One of the important topic here is the repository explorer. See here where we create the folder structure and then start creating objects into that folder structure. For example, so if I wanted to create a folder in the repository explorer and say I'm going to choose my space, because it's every development that you do is associated to your space. So I'm going to give a business name for my folder and say IT, my COE dev. This is my business folder, and then all my objects that I'm going to create will be added to this folder or created underneath this folder. So I have this folder here, and after I go into this folder, currently it is empty, and then that's when I start creating my objects here. So right now I don't have anything. So what I'm going to do, I create some tables and then import the data from the flat files, so CSV files, and then use those tables for modeling or to showcase some of the other functionalities that I just described in this session. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create some tables. So I can create my tables based on uh, by directly going to the local table, or I can create by source system after going to the connections, and then I can use them as a target. Uh, but for these use cases, I will create my tables as local tables. So I can create the local table by giving all the field names, like all the column names with the data types and everything. Or if I have my file somewhere, like a JSON file, the model that has the syntax of all my table definitions in somewhere outside, I can get that file uploaded or imported here in my folder, and my tables will get created automatically. So I'm going to do that. I will get a CSV or JSON file that's already prepared. For all these exercises, I'm going to use TechEd 260, guess 183. This is 2023 TechEd 20 session for DataSphere. So you can get all the resources here. So day A180. This is also all the exercises clearly explained with step by step. So you can also follow through this TechEd course. So I'm going to access my resource chip. So I can say download it. I can download. It goes to my local machine. I'm going to grab this and then open it. You can see there is a model here. That's the JSON model. I'm going to grab this. These are the actual table data, but I'm going to just take this one and put it in my desktop. So I'm going to access this JSON file to get my tables created. So I go back to repository and then say import objects from JSON file and access my JSON file from desktop. This is my sales CR model. Say open. So these are the four tables that are part of the definitions in that CSN file. So I'm importing it. As soon as my import is completed, I can see those four tables available in my folder. I can even have those four tables created in another folder called tables. I can organize in this way so that not all the objects will be in one package or one folder. Sorry. So I have my folder, then I can select my tables. These tables will move to the tables folder. Say move. My tables are all there. It's not, you can see the deployed status. They are not deployed yet. So what I will be doing now, I select my tables and then say, oh, actually the tables is a folder. So I go into the tables and then select my tables and say deploy. So it's going to prepare some checks and then do the backend deployment to the database. The underlying database for this DataSphere service is HANA Cloud. So this will go into the DataSphere schema. You can also have open HANA schemas like how you used to have in SAP native HANA. There's going to be one BW schema, standard or a BAP schema, and there's going to also you can always have open SQL schemas created, and then you keep them. You organize all the objects in the open SQL schemas as well. But right now, I'm going to use the DataSphere schema, which means I will deploy it here. And this deployment gets executed. The objects will get created in the underlying SAP HANA Cloud instance. I said my objects are being deployed, and four objects got deployed now. And the next step is to get some data into it. So I will not go into each table and load the data, but instead I will just load one table, and then the rest will be done later. It's not something really great to show. It's very simple. So for example, if you wanted to load the data into the store, so get the store table open and then import the data. It's just something very simple. You could have done in multiple times in other systems. So same, it's nothing big in it. So semantic usage, choose dimension. That's what it got created when the model was imported. And then I will go and say upload from CSV file. So my CSV file is in the downloads. Oh, okay, it wasn't unzipped. So I'll go and say select and put it in my desktop. Okay, now I will be able to upload that. it's not in the downloads. Go to desktop. I will get dimension store and then open it. Say import. So you can see some of these settings very common. Delete if you can choose this option when the data was already in there. You can delete the existing data and the first row will be header and then just do the import. So the store data is being imported. You can save it. And this dimension has the data. Similarly, you load the other dimensions and also the transaction data where you can create that semantic usage of fact. Okay, and then based on the dimension and facts, you can create an analytical model. That is something I can do in the next session. But for this particular session, I just wanted to show to the point that we can create local tables and get the data from flat files, and then use that model or the tables further in these sessions. Going back to the topics. So there are also a couple of other topics that I wanted to talk about. So premium outbound integration. So uh, this is an additional charge for the basically DataSphere is a pay as you not pay as you go, but it's a CPA, which is like not a subscription based, but based on the number of hours that you used, it will be charged. So, for example, if you're requiring this instance for 24 by 7, which is obviously the production case, and this will cost for each hour, they're going to charge 1 USD for that instance. So, for in a month, how many hours? And the number of hours into $1 will be a basic charge. This is for a minimum configuration of 128 gigabytes of storage and a very minimum 28 guess 28 gigabytes of RAM or memory. This is a very basic and really we wanted more in production instance, but the charge will also get increased based on the you can all get this charge estimators and everything in the discovery center of the services where you can add all your requirements to the calculator and gets the price for a year time for production usage. But premium outbound integration is not included as part of this configuration. Then you have to pay extra for uh, getting the data to the certain targets using replication flows. Currently, there are limited number of data sets which are Azure, AWS, and some of the public cloud services are used as targets for this purpose. There is a blog you can go through for that replication flows premium and integration. There's a series of blocks actually. These blocks explain what are the sources and targets for these are the targets currently available for replication flows as premium outbound uh, capacity, and it is an additional charge for doing this. But let's say you got a requirement to do some exports to other tools like your SQL Server DB. In those cases, you can use the API. There's an API service. You can get it there. You can get that from DataSphere documentation. So go to uh, the uh, integration. Yeah, I can see data integration, consuming data exposed by DataSphere. This document talks about the capabilities of OData service. You can say consume data in all these objects can be accessed using OData service API and any other cloud. Sometimes you may use any integration tool like Informatica or non-SAP tools also, and then access these objects using OData service. But you may have to understand the parameters and authorizations and the API endpoints that needs to be passed. So you get a clear understanding of how this OData API endpoints are to be passed, like catalog spaces and assets. This is a tenant URL. This is a format of an API. It can have different query parameters and also different endpoints to get your required data out from DataSphere. So this is another topic where you not getting the data, but ex- it's like a retraction or exporting the data out of your DataSphere objects. Okay, that's another topic we will cover when you get. But most of the time we focus on the data flows, especially because in the data builder you you get to do a lot of transformations, for example, and also you got the data flows where all the required transformations can be done. So if you go into the data flow, click here, and most of the time as I said, we'll be understanding these different operators. That's what we call here, like union and then aggregation. Also you can script, you can write it and adding the target tables and etc. For example, if you want to do the join, you can do this. Is some of the very familiar operators that you've been using. If you look at the script here, and then click on here, and then you got an option to use the table, but the script what you're going to write here is going to be, if you open this, it's going to be Python script. The properties of the script is going to be in the language Python. So you can add the columns and then you go into the editor of the Python. Then you can start using the libraries, the popular libraries like NumPy. Also you got the Py documentation about the predefined functions modules and that are available in this NumPy as an open source module. And also you got some another popular um, module, the library, the pandas, and you can have more functions that are good for analytics. NumPy and pandas can be your sources for getting some of the functions and modules for the analytics purpose. So we may have to get some more comfort in using these libraries in order to use the functions that are available in those libraries. So I would say this is the only difference or the major um, change that we would have noticed as part of DataSphere in writing the script. Than what we used to do, a lot of SQL and a lot of ABAP in BW, if it is a BW transformation, or if it is native HANA, we use a lot of SQL transformation, SQL coding. But in DataSphere, we can leverage the popular Python libraries and then use the functions to transform the data. So we're going to cover these topics as well in the upcoming sessions. So that's all I wanted to cover in this overview session as or day one. We will go and start working on the data flows and also creating some models, analytical views in the upcoming sessions. And thanks for listening. I hope it is helpful. We'll connect again in another session. Thank you.